So welcome everybody. This is the April 19th, 2017 webinar to inform you about the industry recognized agriculture portfolio credentials that allow students to qualify for the ag portfolio as well as stackable credentials. So within that, let's go ahead and get started. Chad's going to cover the objectives.
So the objectives we have for this webinar are as follows. We're going to learn how your programs could qualify for Pathways funding. The second bullet point will be to identify what are industry credentials. And our third bullet point will be understand what you must do. And the last one will be explaining the industry credential reporting process and CTE data submission process in June. Okay, so we had some questions with what is industry recognized agricultural portfolio credentials? How does my program qualify, and how do we get the industry recognized agricultural portfolio credentials? So I'm going to give a little background on how this started. When we got together back at OATA in John Day at summer conference, we put together a committee of 5 throughout the state of Oregon, and as we met, we said we were going to meet again at fall conference. When July rolled around, I kind of had an opportunity as a TOSA for my school district, and my superintendent and I were trying to figure out what way we wanted to go with the TOSA position. I told her I had a really neat idea. She basically said, let's run with it. So then as I got a hold of Tom Thompson and got the actual form that's to be filled out for the industry recognized credentials, busy with school starting end of August, 1st of September, we have an October 1st deadline. So as I did some research through the 9 workforce investment boards, if you don't know what that is, those 9 workforce investment boards are basically has the state of Oregon divided into 9 sections, and within those individualized workforce investment boards there are high wage, high demand jobs for your specific area and whatever counties would be in that area. So I basically went ahead and tackled the high wage, high demand in Malheur County, went out and got industry partners, letters of support from industry people, and looked at certifications that were discussed at OATA summer conference in John Day, and put those on paper and kind of started formulating a process. And basically supposed to have that deadline October, going to hear something back in December. As time went on, didn't hear anything from Tom Thompson till the end of March, kind of toward the end of spring break. Here we are 2 weeks later with this webinar and basically moving forward.
So very good. So within that, Chad has really shouldered the bulk load of this work and has reached out to other individuals, part of the committee, getting their input. But that has led us to this, to where we do have and think of it as a stackable credentials, that each item that we're going to share in of itself is not a standalone credential, but the package is. So let's jump forward. So within that, here's a little bit of reminder. The secondary career pathway funding is funds that were put forward in the 2015 legislative session. There was $8.5 million that was dedicated and spread over the 2 years of the biennium. Currently, it is not in the governor's budget. And let me repeat, currently, it is not in the governor's budget. But if it does become funded, meaning that item is reauthorized, those line items, then the monies would be available. If we just say it's not in the governor's budget and we don't do anything, or you don't do anything to secure those graduating seniors that are close to having a credential, of the combination of what we're going to identify. After the fact, you would not be able to earn that because you did not have it done before the data submission process, or if they're a graduating senior, you have up until essentially school starts in the fall for that graduating senior to earn a credential. So, example, some of the credentials that require an individual to turn 18 years of age, which is not part of what we're talking about today. For the other industries, the other pathways, they can earn those up prior to the start of school in September. So as a quick reminder, the money is divvied out based upon the data that is collected in June annually. So those are the courses that you teach in your program and students who took those courses. That information is submitted to the Department of Education, and that creates the data set for us. We identify students in your program who have earned 3 unduplicated credits, and those students who have 3 credits then qualify for a point. Additionally, if that student or students are underserved, students of color, poverty, English language learner, disability, they'll get another point. And then industry credential, which we're talking about. So in the last funding cycle, I don't know what the exact pathway funding total was. I think it was right around the $600 threshold. If you had a student who earns a credential, underserved, and the 3 credits, that would be $1,800 dedicated pathway funding that can only be spent within your program. And a number of you have benefited from pathway funding. That's why you're on with this phone call or on with this webinar, because you want to know how you can benefit further. So the rest of this webinar breaks that out. So when it comes to the reporting credentials, what credentials are available for ag? Well, I guess there's another one I should add, which is welding. And I don't have the welding code right now, but I can share that at a later date. So there's 3 credentials right now that are easily attainable for the agriculture programs. Wildland fire for the natural resource agriculture programs. If they have their S-130, S-190, they've passed those exams. And then the ag portfolio, which we're going to share with you more fully, and then welding. But Chad's going to explain the overview of it.
Okay, I kind of talked about the overview on how meeting at John Day and putting together this proposal with the committee. As we get into this and talking about the credentials that we're going to talk about, I just want everybody to be very open-minded, as in, you know, it's a process. These are the pieces that we were able to put together as a committee, and it's a starting point. And then as we use these building blocks to better ourselves and better our students for future success or career success, that, you know, in the different areas throughout the state of Oregon, there's going to be different things that pertain to your program or different credentials that you want to kind of focus your program on. As far as where we're at currently, like I said, it's just a stepping stone, and I don't want to be repetitive on what I had talked about before, but as we get into this, I think it'll make more sense and start to kind of map out this picture of this roadmap of where we're headed.
And here is the website, the Department of Education web link to where the different credentials are and how to report, as well as additional credentials that are available. So just as an information, do you really need to go there? The region coordinators would, but not teachers individually.
So then now what it takes for an individual program to get a student recognized. So if you want to go on, okay.
So within that, actually, go Chad, sorry.
Okay, within that industry recognized ag portfolio credential, there's 3 stackable credentials. And within those stackable credentials, the first one is earn the agribusiness AET good record keeping badge 2 years is required. So when we put this proposal together to Tom Thompson and ODE, we said as a whole that as the state of Oregon, we have adopted the AET Good Record, or basically the AET record book. Within that, we want everybody's on board, and all students should be or are going to use that record book. The next two, any two of the following credentials, here is the list. And remember, this is not set in stone. This is just a start of building blocks. And then I will also, I'm going to read down through this list, and then I will also touch on a couple other things that are potential and have been brought up. We just didn't head that direction when we put this together. Any two of the following credentials, so must have the AET Good Record Keeping Badge. You could put Oregon Pesticide Licensure, Private Applicators Exam, the Certified Forklift Operator, Tractor Machinery Certification, National Safe Tractor and Machinery Operations Program, OSHA 10, General Industry, Artificial Insemination, and then we link these two at the end together, Beef Quality Assurance Certificate and Pork Quality Assurance Certificate. There's a couple others that we kind of had been brought up throughout the committee that aren't necessarily on the list at this current point, but one that was talked about was maybe a certified wine technician. There was also a four-wheeler piece that was brought up for ATV, a boating certificate. So it just kind of gives you some ideas of things that were brought up that may not have been in the high-wage, high-demand field, but could be in high-wage, high-demand field of your location within the OED.
So now we're going to break them down a little bit further into what each one of them entails. Now, AET, and if you jump online and look at the Good Record Keeping Badge, and those of you who are practitioners in AET, you can already say, wait a minute, okay, we've got a little bit of friction here, because the Good Record Keeping Badge at the moment is only awarded out to the top percentage of students within your program. And in talking with Roger at AET, they acknowledge that that's only given out to the elite. They have agreed to do an analysis of students' weekly engagement and students who are actively engaged during the academic calendar year at 80% of the weeks as being a good record keeper. So this is the starting point on that. In the future, we're going to move into an agribusiness management assessment curriculum, and within that, your students would be working with AET, having exposure to AET, and then the business components of AET would be assessed, that they know what an income cash flow statement is, that they know what budgeting, what current assets, non-current assets, current inventory, non-current inventory, that the agribusiness management, the finance pieces of the agriculture industry that they're aware of. So Roger's going to email me, or is going to send me the data set for each program and identify students as of this June who are in that ballpark period. Actually, he's going to get me the information at the end of May. So he's already working on that to share this information. They are going to be the determining factor. This is not you as an advisor saying, yeah, I've got my students that are doing it. They're going to be pulling the master data, the master list, and then it'll be shared through Lee and myself, and then back to the programs and regional coordinators respectively. So this is the AET Good Record Keeping Badge. The whole pathway funding and credential model is built upon the farm and ranch management element of high wage and high demand. Agribusiness is key to that. So that's why AET is a required component for 2 years. So, and no questions, we'll continue to move forward. If you have a question, go ahead and chime that in.
All right, so I get an opportunity to talk about the private applicators exam. This is not the license, it is just the exam to be completed, and the reason why is because in order to obtain a private applicator's license, you have to be 18 years of age, and most of our graduating seniors are turning 18 at some point during their senior year, unless you have a 17-year-old that started school early. So the private applicators exam is good for 2 years. So if you have your students and you have it set up in your greenhouse curriculum that they take it as 16-year-olds, we just have to track those kids to make sure that they, well, I guess it'd be their responsibility to make sure that they get their license. We could track those, but for this specific piece, we're just saying that they have to have their private applicators exam. That exam has to be either passed at 70 or 75%. I actually have some kids going through it right now that we're going to test here the 15th or 16th of next month, and we're going to see how that goes. I had an opportunity with Pathways dollars last year to put together this private applicators curriculum with the textbook through OSU, and that's what I've used for a semester in my greenhouse class with my students. So it'll be interesting to test them and see how they come out. And like I say, this is part of that high wage, high demand occupations. You know, these kids, if they get their license, can go to work for $22 an hour, you know, whether it's within our community or neighboring communities. If you have a student that's college bound and coming back and needing summer work, most kids when they turn 18 and graduate and they're on their own, they look to start pulling strings or drawing for straws of, well, what do I do now? And part of that is, hey, I got my private applicator's license, I can get a job for 22 bucks an hour, work for the summer, and then go back to school in the fall. A little bit with this, I talked to Lori Gordon with Oregon Department of Ag. Because of the 18-year-old regulation, I actually had a student go through and apply to take the test, and she made it through, and that allowed us to understand that, okay, we can take the test. I talked, like I said, to Lori Gordon, and she just said that if it's going to allow you to take the test through metroinstitute.com, we can move forward with that. Shouldn't be an issue. She has one person ahead of her, so if it does become an issue, we can do that. The test is $58 per exam. Pathways funding could pay for that. You look at your investment saying, well, it's pretty costly at $58 per student, but if you look at the whole of what you're doing for the student and you look at the money in return with where Pathways has been around that $600 figure, your investment's going to be, I mean, there's multiple ways to look at it, but it's going to pay for itself, and that student's going to have the availability of having that certificate, which then will allow them to get a high wage, high demand job. The map that we have on here of the private applicators exam, this is to kind of give you an idea of the whole state of Oregon for testing centers. When I talked to our local testing center at Treasure Valley Community College, it was basically just a phone call to let them know on what days you want to test so that they don't have overlapping tests with, depending on your testing center and the size, so that everybody can get in there to test. The actual testing registration for this is the metroinstitute.com. So that might be something I can share with you if this is something you want to build into your curriculum or share with other individuals in your area.
And the web link for the Metro Institute where they have their sign-ups is hyperlinked to the ODA page. And here is their testing centers. So, moving forward, Chad, when are your students slated to take that applicator's exam?
We're slated for the May 15th and 16th. So okay. These kids, basically giving them a chance to do some review and closure and some cramming here in the next couple weeks to, like I say, it's a trial and error thing, and we'll see if I did a good job teaching, or if we'll just see how much they can retain. And like I said, if you miss by 1 point, your 74 or 75 is what you need. You get to sign up and take it again, and I think there's like a 3-day window period before they'll let you back in to take that test. Certified forklift operator. This was kind of an interesting credential when I went down and talked with industry partners in our area. We have basically 25 onion sheds, and forklift operators are in high demand. More importantly, when we get into a little bit of this later with the certified forklift operator, I'm going to talk a little bit about OSHA 10, but what I learned with industry partners is certified forklift people have to pass a drug test, and when those sheds go to drug test their individuals, if they had 17 forklifts out there ready to operate come Monday morning, there's only 9 that are being operated on. So they still need forklift drivers is what I'm saying. And when I talk to, like I said, when I talk to industry partners, I basically put it to them as, hey, you're going to get the pick of this crop. And those industry partners, when talking to them and having them write those letters of support, have been huge supporters. And whatever you need, if you need 4 forklifts for a Saturday and you want to come out and do the driving, they were just open arms. So, and most of you as ag teachers know, within our communities and within our industry partners, we have those relationships. And I think those relationships that we've been able to build over the years, or maybe haven't been able to build, we can reach out to them and say, hey, this is what we need, this is what we're looking at doing, this is how we're going to better our community, better our people, better our students, and most of all, you know, just that support factor. But I think that certified forklift operator is another piece that can be used across the state in many areas. And you can let them know on the links.
Yep. So moving forward, the tractor machinery certification, the tractor safety, a number of our teachers in the state already hold this credential. If not, at summer conference this year, it's going to be a deep dive to where, working with master certifiers, you're going to be able to get it. And then the elements required for to get the certified student is listed here, and this is a Department of Labor requirement that is needed. So within that, if you're in that bubble or you already have students who are qualified, this is already one credential that you have within. So summer conference, this is going to be a heavy conversation around the tractor and machinery safety as well. So, and then here is the certificate that is the former Department of Labor. We do have an updated PDF version to where you can have it printed out, saved on the computer, versus this old carbon-based triplicate copy. But it's the same training. And if you're certified in the newer National Safe Tractor Machinery Operation Program, that counts as well. So either the old model or the new model, either one, they're equal in the lens of what is an industry credential.
All right, the OSHA 10, General Industry Agriculture. When we were looking at this credential and doing our research, this was one that come up quite often just due to the safety of our individuals. The training is $25 per student. I know JD's had a little bit of been involved with this, and like I tell kids all the time, more things that you can put on your resume, the more employable you'll be, and having these different skills and these different certifications are hopefully will put you, you know, toward the top of the list of when you're applying for high wage, high demand jobs. When I think of OSHA 10, most of this comes from my wife at Snake River Produce. If they have an accident down there within the industry, OSHA, they have to report, they get to report to OSHA. OSHA then gets to come out and investigate. If you run into one too many accidents, OSHA can shut down your facility, and if OSHA shuts down your facility, your livelihood, your family, you know, those different types of things, it's not a good thing. So I won't go into too many details on the stories I was getting from industry partners. I'm sure all of you have your own stories about accidents that have happened within industry partners. So this is just a career safe OSHA 10 piece that we thought as a committee and as you know, for Oregon, that it would be a great piece to add to our start of our building blocks. And Dr. Garner's got the website on there for the links.
So moving on, the artificial insemination element, I've been in conversation with Shelby Philly with OSU. Shelby is the extension agent respective of regional livestock, and Shelby's more than willing to open up the current AI courses that are available, and typically they've been in the west side and south. There has been some on the east side, and even coordinate those with the ag teacher calendar to where you could cycle and get students. Again, think of the student's individual educational plan and profile. What is it that student wants to do, and what do they want to be? And if your vision is every student that walks through the door is a freshman, you're going to slap industry credentials on them just so you can get to these funding points. I would discourage you from doing that. I would encourage you to look at what their individual educational plan and profile is and build towards that. If it's AET, they're going to get the beef quality assurance and artificial insemination because they want to go into the ranching side. Go get them. If you're going to get them the AET, the tractor safety, and the pesticide application because they want to go into the nursery greenhouse operations, that's a direction to go. So again, what is their individual plan and profile? Additionally, if you have local, the breed houses that provide regional or local training, you could partner up with them as long as they are signing off that they have met their company's certification process. That would be doable. When I was 17 years old in my high school program, I became certified back in my high school. So it is possible. Additionally, we've had conversation with TVCC and Blue Mountain. Anyhow, Tillamook Bay, Blue Mountain, and TVCC. I better put BMCC in there. I'm going to be in trouble in regards to the artificial insemination in their areas. So again, this is one of the credentials, industry-based, that's leading towards what the students' interests are.
The next slide is Beef Quality Assurance Certificate or Pork Quality Assurance Certificate. So these two certificates, either one would count for this bullet point, as in of the list, it would be one of the two that would go with the AET good record keeping. When we started doing a little research on this, basically basic animal husbandry, so those students that are taking animals to the fairs or showing them on livestock circuits, it's kind of ramping it up with youth and understanding all the ins and outs of showmanship. Some states we even discussed require this. However, Oregon, I believe, does not. I don't want to take a bunch of time with this slide, but it's just another one of those bullet points that as a committee and as a whole we were looking into. And like I said, another one of those building blocks that I think would be very useful to our students within our programs.
Absolutely. So keeping in mind, it's the student's individualized learning plan. What is it? What is their pathway? And the portfolios to match their interest. So you could have in your program students, and the commonality is that they have AET and they have the tractor safety certification, and then they go out and they each get their own individual credential beyond that of the current set. Now, more are going to come online, and that's leading to the next point of the conversation. So at the end of the year, as your school year is closing out, this is where you need to work with your region coordinator during the CTE data submission process. So the statewide ag credentials is this CRED AG 002. That stands Credential Agriculture 002. It's the second one in the agriculture ranks. The CRED AG01 001 is the wildland fire. So where you load this in, there's actually two data options for technical skill assessment. This is where you load in the technical skill assessment that this is the data submission. Now, we're not asking for you to send a portfolio and a list of all the certificates for all your students. That is for you to keep locally. But as you're attesting that here are my students who have earned these credentials, you need to keep the respective paperwork documentation that would be expected of academic records as well as financial records. Because in essence, when you submit this, if the legislative body approves pathway funding, you're identifying that this is a financial award. And the accountability factor, okay, where were the students assessed? What were their scores? And when we're doing it from the external source, if you're doing it from the AI clinic through Blue Mountain or through OSU, you'll have that certificate signed by an external body. AET is going to come from an external body. So those elements, the tractor machinery operation, that protocol, that's an internal. So if I'm in your shoes, I would keep those exams as well as the student performance on that. If you're ever called into question through an audit process, that here was our students, here was their portfolios, we kept a copy of them, and it can be done digitally as long as it's a copy of.
Okay, standing work group committee summer conference. So basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to wrap up kind of what we've talked about here and how this all came about. This is an ongoing committee, not a one and done deal. So that summer conference coming up here, actually talked to my regional coordinator about making reservations today. For that, we're going to be able to meet. I just want everybody to remember I was just basically a representative from our district, the Snake River District, in being a part of this committee. I think as this committee may grow or add parts and pieces to it, I think it's really important that we get the state of Oregon as a whole and all districts involved and have committee members from all. It's kind of fun when you have those committee members who are pretty passionate about these certificates and really have a drive for being able to teach that in the classroom in order to get it as a high wage, high demand industry credential approved, remembering falling under the Farm and Ranch Management umbrella. You know, it'll be interesting to review these results and data as we start to conclude this information. However, we do realize this is toward the end of the school year where, you know, if you didn't really know about it or didn't have it, I guess, set up into your curriculum where you had been doing this, it's going to be kind of a hurry up and hope process, and that you can get the data by that June or 1st of August deadline before school starts. I just kind of rolled the dice and figured I would start to incorporate some of it, just because whether it got approved by OD or didn't get approved by Tom, that I was going to do it anyway. So, you know, making those recommendations to Team Ag Ed, Department of Ed, and most of all, you know, just a collaboration piece. And I think as this continues on and being able to meet in Tillamook, I think there's going to be lots of questions, And I think that's a good thing, because that means that as ag advisors, as teachers, that there's some interest in that we want the best for our students, because ultimate goal is when these kids graduate, they're going to go into the workforce, and what better way to send them with an industry credential of high wage, high demand, even if they are college bound kids.
Okay, so the next question, Chad just gave you the sales pitch on what that we're going to have a standing committee. So within your districts, anyhow, we need to have representation across the state. Is it going to be exactly the representation of the districts? Maybe not, but it needs to be individuals who are connected, engaged, and part of it. And it's going to be an ongoing. So it's going to, you know, conversations of submissions of potential industry credentials outside of, and then it would go through the review process and petition the Department of Education to incorporate that. I could see the certified viticulturalist becoming part of that with the growing wine and grape industry. So what else is out there? And it needs to focus around the farm and ranch management. So on the management side of it. I know there's others out there. It's just a matter we need to build them in. I know the Nursery Association is looking at maybe getting theirs back. That quite possibly could be a standalone or embedded in. We'd have to see. But if you have suggestions, recommendations, push it to Chad or myself. Our emails are listed. And that leads us back to where we started from. How do you qualify for pathway funding? We've shared that. If pathway funding is reauthorized by the legislative process and the budgeting, identify what industry credentials are, and then the two, actually three, including the welding that's available to a current ag program. Understand what students need to do for this ag portfolio, and then explain the reporting process for the data submission and work with your region coordinator on that. So now within that, if you would utilize the question function, there's a number of questions that have happened, and I will share, and I think I shared some of them to everybody and some just back to the original sender. But on the pesticide application, the question was, do you assess students under the age of 16? I would discourage against that. And it's envisioned that people would be taking it, would be within close to be getting their licensure. Now, the testing body is not the Department of Agriculture. The testing body is just a testing company. People pay their fee, they offer the exam, they give the results, they give the results back to the applicant, and that's shared with the Department of Agriculture. The Department of Agriculture then issues a license.
The other
so go ahead.
The other little bit of problem there is you're kind of setting your students up for failure, meaning if you test them before they're 16, that test is only good for 2 years. Those students then are going to turn 18. The test has expired, so they're going to either have to retest and then repay that $58 fee. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there. If you wait till they're 16, pay the $58, you can track those kids when they turn 18, they can submit for that license.
So the next question was on the beef quality assurance, pork quality assurance. It's an either or. You cannot do both and get credit for both. You do one or the other. If you have students that want to do both, and in actuality, it's not that difficult on the beef and pork quality assurance, and I'll leave it at that. Another question was, if your program hasn't been using AET or this is your first year of using AET, are you going to be out of luck? And the answer is, unfortunately, yes, because it's 2 years of AET at the 80 percentile engagement threshold. So if you did not have AET introduced to your students till after you got back from National Convention, you've already lost a bulk load of September, October before students had exposure, and it's during the academic calendar year. So in essence, it's during the period of September through May, if you will, for student engagement. Another conversation was asked about Briggs and Stratton, and the answer is that has been brought up, as well as the ECHO technician. So ECHO and Briggs and Stratton probably could be used interchangeably, but it's what is that certification process? So that would be very appropriate. Another question coming up is on forklift training. There's multiple venues or avenues to do forklift training. If you were to type in Oregon forklift training, you'd probably get 40 different websites of companies saying they would do the online testing, but the physical operation maneuvers needs to be done and certified by a local. So that's where Chad identified. And even at summer conference, we can tease that out and then even have some testimonials of individuals who've jumped in and worked their way through this. Another question was, can students earn both the wildland fire, the ag portfolio, and welding and qualify for 3 points in pathway funding in addition to the 3 credits? So they would have 4 at a minimum, and then if they're an underserved student, they'd get 5. The answer is no. If you have 6 portfolio or 6 credentials or 1, it's the same.
Yes, throwing it out there with when we received the pathway funding. And I never did ask if there's going to be a cap on it. I know the cap for the pathways for the completers, 3-year ag completers, was $45,000. We haven't got it. I don't know that answer.
Yeah, I envision cap at whatever level. It would be at what the committee decides, and the committee. And the great thing about pathway funding, it was literally pushed through by business and industry partners, and they're the ones who set the threshold at 3 credits. Even though we said, just be mindful that the minimum for Perkins is 2 credits, and they said 2 credits is inadequate. We want greater depth, and it's a pilot. It's a reward for those who have persevered and are offering in depth. They're the ones who set the 3 threshold. They're the ones who have also identified that $45,000 would be adequate, because some of the programs, large programs, would have been into the $100,000, if you will, with the total number of students that they have go through. Well, they're large schools, multiple teacher programs, and it's not just the ag side that I'm referring to. Some of the magnet schools in the Portland area really had numbers of students. So no further questions, but we appreciate your time. Keep making opportunities available for your students and do what you do. Thank you, guys.